please join me in welcoming Xenia Rubinos to the stage.
French bistro, Dominican chef, Italian restaurant, Boricua chef, Chinese takeout, Mexican chef, a new America bachata in the back. Brown walks your baby, brown walks your dog, brown raised America place of his mom. Brown cleans your house, brown takes the trash, brown even wipes your granddaddy. Brown sews the buttons back on your shirt, brown picks the fruit, brown painting in the dirt. Brown drives your bus, brown drives your taxi, brown brings your lunch on a bike when you're relaxing. Brown tears him down and builds him again. Brown breaks his back, brown takes the flag. Brown gets cut cause his papers away. Brown sits down, brown does frown. Brown's up in a hospital gown. Brown has not, brown gets shot. Brown got what he deserved cause he fought. I want it all now. I want it all now. We build the boat that's gonna take you to town. We build the ghettos and we tear them down. French bistro, Dominican chef, Italian restaurant, that's a Boricua chef. It's a Chinese takeout, Mexican chef, a new America bachata in the back. It's a French bistro with the Dominican chef, Italian restaurant, that's a Boricua chef. It's a Chinese takeout, Mexican chef, a new America bachata. It's a party cross America bachata in the bay. It's a party cross America bachata in the bay. It's a party cross America bachata in the bay. It's a party cross America bachata in the bay. Toma chocolate, págalo que debe. Tómalo, págalo. Toma chocolate, págalo que debe. Tómalo, págalo. Toma chocolate, págalo que debe. Tómalo, págalo. Okay. Chef, Italian restaurant is a Boricua chef. It's a Chinese takeout, Mexican chef, a new America bachata in the. It's a French bistro with the Dominican chef. Italian restaurant is a Boricua. It's a Chinese takeout, Mexican chef, a new America bachata in the bag. Ha! Party in America, no, no, no. It's a party in America. It's a party cross America, bachata in the back. Thank y'all. Does anybody know what bachata is? Uh-huh.
Oh, you want me to tell you?
Yeah, why not? What's bachata?
It's like a Latin type of like dance. Not salsa, but like more faster and sensual.
Yeah, bachata, he said bachata is like a Latin dance. What do you say is more sensual?
I think it's more sensual.
Okay, it could be. Yeah, it's a dance style. It's from the Dominican Republic, but it's also music. Check it out. Just put in bachata in your Google search engine and find out what it is. Ask Google. Yeah, bachata. So I'm saying bachata in the back. People are like, what are you saying? That's what that song is saying. I haven't plucked my eyebrows since last month. One of these days, gonna let my mustache grow back in. Don't know where I'm going, only where I've been. I know that cliche's tired. I feel it on my skin. I was worried that my papa lost the chain his mother gave him the day he left. Never saw her again. Sometimes I feel like a clown and I laugh, 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 laugh. Does your brain feel fine when you're fighting? Does your brain feel fine when you're losing with your mind? Ain't got no money, got no money, got no job, got no kids, no country to live in. Who am I? I know what you are, but what am I? Well, sometimes I feel like a clown, then I laugh, and now I'm laugh, clown, laughing. And sometimes I feel like a queen, I stand, then I stand, now I'm standing. Ooh, does your brain feel fine when you're fighting? Does your brain feel fine when you're losing with your mind? Can you feel your way up the morning just in time? Can you feel your way up the morning, stand in line? I can't tell just how far it goes, baby. Can you tell me just how far it goes? Oh, when in time, oh, wounds do scars grow, baby. We'll see how far back it goes. Sometimes I feel like a clown, then I laugh, and now I'm laugh, clown, laughing. And sometimes I feel like a queen, I stand, then I stand, now I'm standing, standing. And sometimes I feel like a joke that I tell, then I tell, now I'm telling. Ooh, does your brain feel fine when you're fighting? Does your brain feel fine when you're losing with your mind? Can you feel your way out of the morning darkness just in time? Yeah. Feel your way out of the morning darkness just in time. Yeah. Your brain feel fine when you're fighting. Does your brain feel fine when you're losing with your mind? Can you feel your way up the morning just in time? Can you feel your way up the morning, stand in line? That one was called Laugh Clown. And this last one, it's called Just Like I. You guys okay out there? Yep. And gals? Yeah? Taking the temperature? You guys all right? Okay. just like I. Oh, just like I love, I kill. Oh, just like I. Oh, just like I. Oh, just like I love, I kill. I kill you. Ooh, 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 every single day I go to work, I fill my cup. Every single day I pray to God to lift me up. Oh, just like I, oh, just like I, oh, just like I love, I kill. I'm just like my mother, I'm just like my father, I'm just like your sister, your brother, and your mother. Oh, with the same teeth, oh, with the same teeth, oh, with the same teeth. I smile, I bite you with the same lips, oh, with the same lips, oh, with the same lips. I kiss, I lie too with the same eyes, oh, with the same eyes, oh, with the same eyes you use. I watch you with the same hand, oh, with the same hands, oh, with the same hand. Their feet, I stab you. Just like I, oh, just like I, oh, just like I love, I kill. Oh, just like I, oh, just like I, oh, just like I love, I kill you.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that was so great. Round of applause for Xenia.
Thank you.
So I had this like very distinct way in order I was gonna ask you questions in, but I have to start with something different.
Okay.
Because you said something while you were up here, and I think it was really profound. And I don't know that every performer, when they get on stage, gets that overtaken by their music. And I wanted to ask you about that because you sang that second
Laugh Clown.
Laugh Clown. And you said, I lose myself in that sometimes, or something to that effect. So when you're up on stage like this and you're performing and that feeling overtakes you, what's going through your mind? How do you feel about your music in those moments?
I'm not really thinking on a, in kind of like a rational level, and that's really the problem. Mostly.
Problem or not a problem? It's a good
It can be a problem. Yeah, I'm in like a dream state when I'm at my best. I think to be connected to, the performance and I'm really grateful anytime that I get to share my music and perform it, and for that experience of receiving energy from people that I'm performing for, and also giving that energy out. So when I'm in that cycle, that circle, I spin out sometimes, and I'm kind of in dream state, which can be a problem if like I let my emotions kind of take over.
Right.
If I let my adrenaline take over, I can do things that I could hurt myself, or I could like jump on people, or do all kinds of things that I'm known to do. But then I don't remember after. I'm not like present in that rational sense in that moment. And then sometimes I'll see a video and I'll be like, I was dancing like that? Oh my gosh. I don't even know I could do that. I'll be like, why do my knees hurt? And then I'll look at the video and I'll see that I was doing like these dead drops, like doing like pow, like doing all this crazy thing. And I'm like, I don't even remember doing that. Good thing I didn't split my pants. But that happens, yeah.
And you usually play with a band, right?
Yes. Currently, my setup is a 4-piece band. So I am free to sing mostly. And I play little organs in this current setup. But it's myself, my drummer, Marco Buccelli, and then a bass player and guitar, keyboards.
So if things get really out of control, they can...
They usually are
probably
just,
let you go.
They're
right?
on the back line. They're holding it down.
Yeah.
They're usually just like what is she doing today?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We think we all need to see you at the band. You'll
Oh,
to
yeah,
let us know
yeah.
when you're
Yeah,
performing in
come
the
out.
area. Okay, great. So this is a really exciting time for you. You're on your second album. Your first record was released in 2013, Magic Tricks, yeah?
Yes.
And then this album, which I think is so beautiful. They're both so beautiful, and they're sonically so different. What is your process when you write music? What's your inspiration?
Thank you. Well, I usually start by improvising. So I usually start a writing session first with something that I know, just whether it's a song that I like or a song of mine or something that I know to kind of just warm up. And then I usually start improvising either with just my voice or on an instrument, a physical instrument like a keyboard or on the bass. In this case, I wrote a lot of the album on bass, which I don't know how to play really. I went and I bought a bass because I was demoing the song and I needed a bass player to play these lines and nobody would show up that day. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna buy one, I'll return it. I guess I shouldn't say that, but I'll return it later when I'm done. But I was having so much fun that I decided to keep the bass. And so I ended up writing a lot of this record on that. But usually it's just improvising and I try to just let myself go for a little bit, and then I start to hear some bit, whether it's a rhythm that I'm playing or I'm singing or it's a melody that's happening, and I isolate a small bit of that, and then I repeat it. So I repeat it to find out more about it through repetition. And usually when I find out something about it, then something else happens, it changes. And that's usually how an idea starts for me.
So it builds organically.
Yeah, through improvisation
Right.
and listening.
Do you think the fact, because the first record was very synth and organ sounding, and the Black Terry Cat is there's something smoother, more jazzy, more melodic about it. Do you think any of that had to do with the bass, with you just pulling out that bass and beginning to write the record with it?
Definitely, the writing a lot of the songs on bass, influenced the sound of the album. Is very bass centric. A lot of the melodies came from playing on that instrument.
It's really rhythmic.
The first record was kind of a piano trio, power trio record.
Okay.
So it was very minimal. It was bass, drums, and keyboards mostly. There's not much else in the sound palette. And in this record, I expanded a little bit, and I did more vocal stacks. Like in the vocal arrangements, I have like these kind of fat vocal stacks and layering that I hadn't done as much before. I used to loop my voice and use my voice as kind of like horns and different textures, which I'm still doing in this record, but I expanded the sound palette a little bit more with more synths, some guitar. But I think ultimately what changed on this album for me was also the music I was listening to at the time. Okay. So I was really into, I was discovering a lot of hip hop music that I didn't know about. Some groups like Slum Village, which was
I represented Slum Village.
Really?
Yes.
Were they?
Yes.
Were they good
I
clients?
did. I was a music attorney before I joined YouTube in 2011, and in 1997, I think.
Possible.
96, I represented this artist named Slum Village, and I didn't know that anybody knew Slum Village.
That was some of Jay Dilla's masterful work at the beginning.
The producer who was Slum Village, I think
Jay Dilla produced those tracks.
But there was another artist with the name. His name was Bryce. Was his last name?
Oh gosh,
I won't remember.
You caught me. You caught me on that one.
Really hilarious.
Okay.
That you referenced them. Okay,
they're
who else?
incredible. Yeah.
Who else?
Black Moon. And Jay Dilla, I mean, discovering sampling, for the first time. I mean, I knew what sampling was, but it was just I hadn't really been digging into that music. I kind of was coming out of a period where I was discovering punk for the first time, and I had been listening to jazz for a while, but I had kind of been suppressing some of those interests in my music, or not suppressing them, I was just on another tip. And this time around, I was kind of digging into this music, going back and listening to Busta Rhymes, who I listened to as a child as well. Listening to Kendrick Lamar's album, Pimp a Butterfly, was also really influential for me at the time that I was finishing this album. That album came out,
right.
And I was thinking about lyricists, rappers, and people who use their voice, to tell stories. And listening to, Kendrick's album and how he sounds like 10 different people on one album, and thinking about different ways to use your voice. So all of those things influenced me on this album. I wanted it to be really beat-driven, really soulful and funky, and also kind of focus on the vocal performances.
Right. Well, what you do with your vocals is incredible.
Thanks.
So Pitchfork got it right. I pulled a quote that Pitchfork referred to your music as adept at punk confrontation as R&B run-ons, which was very interesting to have punk and R&B in the same sentence. But and then from there's also, outside of the sound, the music, there's really deep messages in the work on this album and the last one too, but I wanted to focus on this one because you perform Mexican Chef. What are you trying to convey?
Well, that song, Mexican Chef, just started out as kind of an observation. I was walking around running errands in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, and there were kitchens that were setting up for the night, and they had the back door open, and you could see the kitchen staff, cleaning up, setting things up, prepping. And they were blasting bachata and rancheras and salsa. And today in the Google cafeteria, actually, they were listening to salsa on blast. And I was like, "What's up? Who's playing all this old school salsa?" And they were like, "Yeah, we are. What's up?" So that was cool. But so all of the kitchen staff was listening to this music. And then in the front of the restaurant, the wait staff was mostly white, and the kitchen staff was mostly Latino. And in the front of the restaurant was completely different sound palette, completely different kind of music playing. And I just thought it was so funny. So I started kind of improvising on these words. And I thought I was writing a short story or a funny rhyme to myself. I didn't think anything of it. And when I got home, I wrote it all down, and I thought it was just kind of making myself laugh. It was a joke, But then it ended up becoming that song, Mexican Chef. Right, people have responded to it a lot in terms of saying that it's very political and it's very social, which I guess it is very social. But I didn't intend for that. I didn't set out to write a song like that. I was kind of just having fun and observing things. But my mom used to say when I was a kid, I always remember her saying this one thing that the hands of brown women welcome you into the world and clean you when you're an infant and welcome you in the hospital, and they're the same ones that kind of take you out of this world, not take you out, take care of you when you're on your way out.
Right.
They're the same ones who take care of you when you're on your way out, in nursing homes and stuff. My mom worked in a nursing home. She's a registered nurse when she one of her first big jobs in this country. She talks about the labor of brown people. So that's kind of what I'm referring to in the song, is this kind of somewhat invisible workforce that makes our cities function, especially in a city like New York, or all of these big metropolitan cities where we have all of these incredible services. You can have your laundry, you can have your clean underwear delivered to your doorstep if you want to. It's absurd, but that's the luxuries that we live, in these cities. And a lot of the times, the people who actually make those services function are people of color. So it's kind of a shout out to that workforce.
That's great. I've had the experience. I've been in the nursing home with your parents and had that experience that you're referring to. And I've had the experience of birthing my own children and had exactly the same experience that you're referring to. And both were beautiful. So when you think about your process and your music and the meaning, I think that as an artist, you have your own perception of your music, and then you have all these external accolades and critiques of your music. And are they the same for you? Do you feel about your music the way that you read people writing about it and the way you hear or see people responding to you?
Well, it's like when you look in the mirror, the eyes that you see yourself with are totally different than the eyes that others see you with, that a lover sees you or a stranger sees you, So it's not the same. Sometimes there's synergies. Sometimes when I'm performing, I might be that day I might have been working on something and channeling something, or I might have been listening to a song, like Erykah Badu song or something before I come on stage. And then after the show, someone will be like, oh, you remind me of Erykah Badu. And I'll be like, whoa, that's weird. And I'm like channeling, like just because in that day I think that I was maybe channeling that or projecting that, and through our transfer of energy, like somebody received that. So I think that, that kind of stuff happens sometimes where someone will perceive something that is a new thought for me that I'm working on, and in that way we'll agree. But a lot of times I'm surprised, and it's fun. It's fun to see how people, perceive your work. Sometimes more than others, but because
How do you want the music to make people feel?
Well, I would like people to feel joy, and to feel enraptured by my music, to feel inspired to listen to music or to make something when listening to my music.
Do you do any other form of art? Do you write? Do you paint? Is there any other corollary?
I wish I could paint. I can't even draw like a square or a circle. It's really sad. But I do enjoy writing. I've just been in a fight with words for like a decade now. So it's something I'm working on. Something I was working on this album. I wanted to work on my lyric writing a little bit, because I felt like in my first album I relied a lot on kind of figurative language, and a lot of my lyrics were super open to interpretation, which they always are. But I was wondering what it would be like to approach lyric writing in a more literal sense.
Right.
And I guess one of my big fears is, two big fears is talking about things I don't know, and just adding to the noise of people just talking about things they don't know about. And the second was about being corny or cheesy, with like being so literal that it's corny,
right.
And so now I just went for it, and I was, was literal. But writing is something I'm really curious about and interested in.
Right, there are some artists and songwriters that actually put down the lyrics first, and then they create music to it, right? Or vice versa.
Yeah. In my case, I've always done it the other way around. The sounds, the melodies and rhythms come first, and the lyrics have always been last.
Yeah.
But on this record, I was like, no, girl, you go in and you write the words down. What does that mean? So I was trying to be more specific.
Right.
And it's tough. And the only way I convinced myself a couple times, just being like, don't worry, you're gonna throw it away afterwards. Like, no one will ever see this. So I just had to, it could be petrifying just to be that specific. And so, and now, we're just always throwing out words all the time to each other, on Twitter or whatever. We're just always like blah, 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 blah. Everyone is so entitled to say whatever they want all the time and write it down, and maybe not always think about it before, but
do you use
scary.
social media in like promoting your shows, tours, things like that, your music?
Yeah, I do. It's complicated.
Yeah.
We have a complicated relationship.
I'm
working on it.
I don't think you're the only artist that has a complicated relationship with social media.
Yeah.
One is, and you probably feel this also, is there's so many different places to go to reach your fans today. And I hear sometimes from artists, well, I'm on YouTube and I'm on Twitter and I have Facebook and I have Instagram and I have Snapchat and I have WhatsApp. It's like the litany of different outlets, and where should I go first and where should I reach my fan? And I think it's kind of difficult when, I think some artists will just select one place to really focus on and build a fan base. I don't know. How do you address that?
Well, yeah, I just have fun, Yeah. I think ultimately people can tell when you're not about something. Just in general, like if you're playing a song that you don't believe in or that you don't like what you're doing, people can tell. So I think, audiences are smart, and people are smarter than we give them credit for it. So I think like trying to be genuine in all of those things. So, I tried Snapchat, but it just makes me feel old. I don't understand what's going on. I can't ever find, trying to respond. I'm like trying to do the thing, and I can't figure it out. But yeah, I just try to have fun and figure out my way and not force things,
What's your favorite song to play?
Ooh, See Them, which is a jam I didn't play today, but that's kind of a B-side jam from Black Terry Cat.
Okay.
And it's kind of a choose your own adventure song. except I chose it for you. But it kind of has some similarities to a through composed piece, which is a piece that would have, if your sections are lettered, it would just be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it would never repeat. It would just go from one section to the other. So I kind of set out in this structure of writing this thing that would never repeat, but then that didn't happen. I ended up repeating a couple sections, but it still has this kind of longer development and all these different sections, and I have so much fun playing that, like too much fun playing that song live. I need the help of my band to play it because there's so many layers going on that to otherwise I would just be pressing a button and singing to tracks. But I love playing that song live, and seeing how people are connecting with it physically is cool too.
When are you playing in the area?
I just played in the area.
Oh.
You just missed me. Yeah, I just had my homecoming show a week ago or something. I just finished my first ever headline national tour.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
Where'd you go?
All over the U.S. I went to Canada, drove from coast to coast, went to the south.
Amazing.
Went to the middle, went to the west, went to the east, went to the north.
I watched
went
your
all the
NPR
directions.
Tiny Desk performance. You must have done that in the middle there at some point.
I did that, I think, this summer. They taped them in advance, but yeah, that was fun.
Those must be so much fun.
I was really
Have you
nervous.
guys seen the NPR Tiny Desk performances? I love them.
I was very nervous, but we got through it. Yeah, it was
It's
good.
probably a little nerve-wracking in that space.
It is, and also, there's it's a lot of heavy music cats in there, that have played there and that work there. So it's like, whoa, But we got through it. Yeah.
Speaking of heavy music cats, I wouldn't have asked you this question, but you said that. Who would be the one person, the one musician that you haven't met yet that would be most inspiring and cause you to write more? And
Should have told me that one before.
I know. You could think about it. Well, I'm going to actually ask if anyone in the room has any questions or anything more you'd like to hear or that you'd like to share with us. No?
Hi. So when I was first listening through Black Terry Cat, I was thinking, okay, this is a little more political. But the thing that kind of turned me around on that was the song Laugh Clown, which you just performed. So in the first line, you talk about how, you're letting your eyebrows grow back in and
My mustache.
Your mustache.
and your mustache as well, yes. And that kind of spun me around because, I found that political, but then I questioned why I found it political. Because, in effect, as a default state, your body is a statement to the rest of society. And that's really, I think that also applies to some of your other statements, like in Mexican Chef, that, this isn't necessarily you going out to be political, but I see that, in this society, your body is political. So could you comment to that at all?
Woo. Yeah, well, it is interesting. Thanks for the great question, by the way. I think that by virtue of just being who I am, looking how I look and where I come from, and being a woman, a lot of just observing and just saying what I see or what I've lived is political, It's just as simple as that. But it may not be if someone else, maybe if you were to say something that you saw or something that you lived, it may not be perceived as political, but just by virtue of me telling you my experience, it's political. Maybe because there are less people who look like me in certain contexts and situations that are expressing, their lived experiences and things that they see. So, that's one thing. And I think that this album this work is really personal. It's, the song Laugh Clown at the beginning, I'm really talking more about like personal hygiene and the passage of time and how I was also working through depression and grief and kind of having that beginning for me personally is about I'm over it. Like I'm not even caring. Like when I'm looking at myself, I'm like, whoa, I didn't pluck my eyebrows for a month. Like what's going on? What's the deal? But it's more about just being in that kind of state. But I am also in this album talking about brown girls and people of color, brown boys too, and talking about body issues. I have a song called "I Won't Say," where I quote a piece from one of my heroes. Maybe that's who I would like to meet, Abby Lincoln, vocalist. She was a contemporary of Billie Holiday, but she's a little bit less well known. And Abby's work and voice is so rich and so beautiful and has a lot to say, a lot of commentary about things that she's lived and seen. And she wrote an essay that was published in, it was called Negro Digest at the time. I think it might be Ebony now. And it's called Who Will Revere the Black Woman? And it was talking about how in our society the black woman is kind of disposable and thrown away and not championed, and her nose is too wide and her feet are too flat and her face is too black and all this kind of thing. So in this, and I cite some of that in my song, I Won't Say, and I'm dealing with some of these body image issues and that are universal, regardless of your ethnicity, but of feeling like you don't fit in, just a lot of kind of universal things. But so ultimately, this work is very personal for me, even more so than political. But it's the others who do the othering. It's the others who say that I'm being political, but I'm just sharing my personal experience. I don't know if that answers your question, but a couple thoughts in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, first I just wanted to say this is kind of weird for me because earlier this week I found out you were coming and I was just like, oh shit. And I got here really early because I was like, this place is gonna be packed. I can't believe she's coming here. And now I'm just like, apparently I have to tell everyone to listen to you because they haven't already. But I was wondering two things. First, have you always lived in Brooklyn, or I guess just wondering about like where you grew up and how that like influenced you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I was also wondering just more of your musical influences. I don't know if you listen to her, but I'm reminded of like early Regina Spektor sometimes with your like vocal
I see that.
creativity, or like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's nice.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, tell everybody to listen to me.
Just not Googlers, I guess.
Uh-huh. It's all good. It's all G.
We're going to spread the word.
Happy to be here. I'm not from Brooklyn originally. I've lived here in New York City for 10 years. So I guess that's a cutoff that makes you the real New Yorker, right? Like 10? I heard. I don't know. Whatever.
I give it 2.
2?
New York, you have to New York's a really hardy place. Like if you can make it 2 years in New York, I think you're safe to call yourself a New Yorker.
Okay.
I've been living here for 20.
Well, so you are definitely the real deal.
22.
So you got me beat times
I have
2
you beat.
and 2 and a bit. Well, I'm.
Oh God, 24.
Oh, time flies when you're living life. Yeah, so I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, so that's just 2 hours north of here, smack dab in the middle of the state, Connecticut. And I've lived my whole life here in the Northeast of the states, and I guess the majority of my life in Hartford, and that is a very oppressed city, financially and culturally, which is ironic because it's in like one of the richest states in the country, but there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of cultural repression. There's not much going on arts-wise, although folks are always constantly working to change that. But very racially segregated city, very large Hispanic community that lives there. My mom is from Puerto Rico and my father was from Cuba, and they met in Hartford, of all places. I'm like, really? I could have grown up in a beautiful Caribbean island. But so that's where they met. And in the 70s, there was an effort to recruit laborers for the industries in Hartford. There was a huge cult, weapons manufacturing companies, huge industries in Hartford, and they needed people to come and work, probably on the cheap side, in these factories. So they actually went to Puerto Rico to recruit workers and offer them housing. And I think I have to do more research, and I'm very curious on this topic, and I hope to be able to do it soon. But I think that was how the ghettos were built in Hartford. And I always wondered, like, how did all of these Puerto Ricans end up here in this cold place, this cold, unfriendly kind of climate? And my mom was always like, oh, it's like somebody's cousin said there was work there, or somebody's aunt. It's always like somebody's family member told them to go for work. But I recently read that about kind of like this recruitment effort in the 70s, which makes sense of why so many Latinos. But that's where I grew up, and I couldn't wait to leave, and I spent a lot of my teenage years, I guess, as many of us do, like wanting to get away from, where I was. My family was great and very supportive and very loving. I came from a very loving, supportive home. Not musicians. No one in my family is a musician. But music lovers. They love to dance. They play music at all the family functions, as many Caribbean folks do. So I grew up dancing to salsa. I grew up listening to classical music. My father, who was my Cuban side, he grew up listening to the radio, classical music he discovered on the radio in Havana. And he had a lifelong love of classical music. And for him, modern music was like Stravinsky or something. So he wasn't sure like what I'm trying to do. But
how old were you when you started playing music?
Well, he took me to a toy store, and there was a piano in there, I guess, when I was like 4. And I supposedly sat down on the piano and really couldn't stop playing. I don't know if it was me who did that or if it was him, because he had always wanted to be a pianist. Yeah. But in that time, it wasn't acceptable for men in that community to be artists, because it would imply that something about their sexuality, or it just wasn't an acceptable career choice. Mm-hmm.
In Cuba?
In his community. I don't know if that's true for all of.
But when he was in Cuba, not after he.
No, yeah, as a child when he was growing up. Maybe it was something in his household, or his dad was not a classical music fan. He would say that's music for dead people. Like, don't play that when I'm here or whatever. But so anyway, my dad says that I couldn't, stop playing the piano, so he got me the piano. I couldn't wait. He's like, oh, she's gonna be a pianist, or like she's gonna be an opera singer. And but then I was like, I really like Mariah Carey, actually. I just want to do Mariah Carey songs all day. And he didn't. He was like, if you want to be like Mariah Carey, you need to learn how to, read music. Yeah. I was like, really? You sure? Can I just not? So so he encouraged me to choose another instrument aside from voice, to learn also how to read music. And so I started, lessons, and he met people at my school. He was always into something, trying to encourage me to be musical, and met somebody at the school who was able to fund a scholarship for me to study privately, and that's how I learned how to read music. Yeah. And some of my musical influences, are a lot. I grew up listening to, classical music. Ravel is one of my favorites. It has beautiful piano sonatas, and hip hop I talked about earlier, Jay Dilla. It was important for me to discover Bjork when I was in my 20s, which when I first heard her album Post, I was like, I don't understand what this is. I hadn't ever listened to electronic music. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what she was doing. It took me like a good year to really kind of come back and realize the depth of, her compositions and her sound world, and that was really inspiring to me too. So, it's like another question.
Hi.
Hi.
So music is probably one of the main reasons I ended up moving to New York, especially like listening to bootlegs from places like Arlene's Grocery and places like that, or Jeff Buckley playing at Chennai. But a lot of those places are gone, or they still exist, but they're in a different location. And I'm kind of curious what your favorite places are to play around the city or to see new music that you're discovering.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. There's a newish venue in Brooklyn called Come On Everybody that has a really great kind of curatorial program, a lot of diverse groups playing there. It's not specific to one style or one social scene. It feels like there's a lot of different kinds of music coming through there, and it's a new space and very welcoming space. Feels like a safe space for people to gather. So I really like going there. It's one of my favorite venues to just kind of hang out at and check out music. Trans Picos in Ridgewood is also a really great venue that's run by Todd P., kind of famous promoter who kind of came up doing a lot of punk shows and DIY shows. He runs Trans Picos and also the Market Hotel that just recently reopened, also in Brooklyn. So there are a lot of great venues to check out music at. I guess one of my favorite spaces that I've ever played in New York, that I love the sound of, is Bowery Ballroom. I think that room sounds incredible, and the house engineer is a legend. Like, such a pleasure to work there, and I love the sound of that room a lot.
Thanks.
Sure.
That is actually a great question, because I was going to Chennai and Arlene's and brownies. It was like there was a scene in the East Village, and then it moved further down to Ludlow, and then Arlene's opened, and Chennai closed, and everything just kind of kept moving south, and then it moved into Brooklyn. In the 10 years that you've been here, have you seen a radical shift? I mean, I spent some time in LA, I spent time in Nashville, and there's been a little bit of an exodus, it feels, for musicians and artists from this area.
Oh, yeah.
Do you sense that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I moved here 10 years ago, the Williamsburg of today had nothing to do with the Williamsburg of even 10 years ago, and I don't even know what before that, who knows. But yeah, I used to hang out a lot in Williamsburg. I had some of my first shows there at this place that was called Galapagos, that used to be on North 6th Street, right next to what is now Music Hall of Williamsburg. Then they moved to Dumbo, and then there's a big article of them like moving to Detroit and buying a fabulous, building in Detroit for like $5 or something. So there's all that, that kind of stuff going down for sure in the last 10 years, and lots of great venues. Glasslands on North, on Kent Avenue. That whole scene there with Glasslands. There was another place called Monkey Town. That was my hangout. That place was wild. It was like this cube room, really small. You could probably fit like 30 people in there, maybe, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was 100. I don't know. But it was all these video walls, that you were surrounded by, and then these couches, and the artist would play in the middle, and they would have like kind of this like video music sets, like DJ sets, and like mostly experimental stuff, like late night vibes. But it was such a great space, and so many great venues that have moved on and don't exist anymore. But there are new places to play. But of course, a lot of recording studios also have shut down and moved away, and it's an expensive city. It ain't cheap. We got all those services we were talking about earlier. It's cheap. It's not cheap to live here. So that's not conducive to folks who are maybe trying something new and starting new adventures or new businesses. It can be a little challenging, certainly when real estate is pricey, when your rent is too damn high. I don't know if you can say that on here, but that's the vibe for sure. But there's still, I love New York City. I love living here. I've met incredible people, and I meet new people working on really exciting ideas a lot, and that's what keeps me here.
Yeah. That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Great.